Morning. Good to see everyone. Peter, Pedro, Noah, I don't know how that happened. Armand, Jason, Nia, Barry, Arya, Taryn, Bajan, Yoni, Hallie, Lana, Dylan, Valentino, Tom, Isabella, Kennedy, Andrea, Anil, Jack, Christine, Darian, Jesse, Susan, Allison, Anthony, Nathan, Emerson, Destiny. Good to see everyone. Looks like we're pretty much got a full house. Lana, Hallie, good to see you guys. All right, so here we are at the final. Click A for attendance. So congratulations, you made it to the final day. This has not been an easy class. This has been a lot of reading, weekly accountability for the readings, 3 challenging essays, and now this final collaboration. I want to take this moment to thank you all for the effort that you put in during this most stressful of times. Being online is not easy. I know some of you in this class have actually had COVID, others have had friends and family, and others have just lived in fear of getting it. All of that is stressful. And the election was stressful and really distracted us for a good week in there at least. But I want to say that I'm satisfied with our progress, and I'm very grateful for this class. I'm grateful for your willingness to go along with this sort of experimental curricular revision, which was, as I said at the beginning of the class, inspired by the George Floyd movement that arose out of the Black Lives Matter movement this summer, and the call for educators to be more responsive to race and racism and the legacy of racism in the American educational system. And prior to this class, there were no readings by Black philosophers or any consideration of slavery in the way that the class was taught. And my colleagues and I are working on trying to build this syllabus into a course outline of record that would be changed for all future teachings of this class. So you guys were, you know, for better or worse, the guinea pigs for this project. And I'm grateful that you were willing to go along for the ride. But also you should take this moment, take your right hand, put it over the back of your shoulder, and give yourself a pat on the back, because this was not easy, and you showed up. Here you are in the final moment showing up. So I'm very grateful, and I hope you're grateful for your progress. At the end of class, I'll have a few more evaluative clicker questions for you. But in the meantime, what I'm hoping, I looked at where people are. We have enough to basically make a decision. Would you sign this? So we'll take a look at each of the 3 declarations, and then at the end, we'll have a discussion of them if anyone wants to raise issues, questions, concerns. But then we'll have a clicker vote. Would you sign this declaration? Yes, without reservation. B, yes, with reservation, and be ready to state your reservations. Or no, I could not sign this. So it'll be a way for the group to get a certain kind of feedback and validation for the work that they did. I will say in my Philosophy 7 class, all 4 of the declarations they wrote were passed with consensus unanimously. And I think partly that has to do with, you know, at the beginning of the process, there was a challenge. The big challenge that class really wrote about was how difficult it is to get on the same page when everybody has a lot of good ideas. And as Peter was reminding me in the optional office hours on Tuesday morning, one of the challenges of writing a declaration is to get focused. And really, it's a memo, as you'll recall from Daniel Allen's work. It's a memo, and a memo has a sort of a concise focus, mission, agenda. And so I would give myself in this process probably a B- on the facilitation, although I actually think that leaving a lot of things unresolved, like exactly what the process should be, puts you in the real life situation of working with other community members and trying to start something out of nothing, trying to start something out of a concern, but without a structure that has a hierarchy embedded in it, like our work lives do. How do we get together? How do we come together? How do leaders emerge? How do we articulate our philosophical principles? How do we articulate our grievances? How do we get focused enough to put those together into an argument with a conclusion? It's a challenging process. And one of my commitments, no matter which class you take with me, you will see that my classes all have a civic mission. I believe that education should prepare students for citizenship. In addition to prepare them for job and transfer, but I believe that the most power that you will be able to exercise with regard to the problems we're facing in our society has to do with your standing as a citizen who can act on behalf of your community, your family, the people that you care about. So one thing I thought was interesting that happened this week at the end of class, if you're interested, I'll play you. Danielle Allen has decided to run for governor of Massachusetts. She put out a feeler. She didn't say she is running. She said she's considering a run. And that coming out of her real commitment to this idea that if you don't think things are going well, you as a citizen have a responsibility to stand up and do something. If she were elected governor, she would be the first African-American woman elected governor in this country. And so it's interesting to see how she pitches herself in this 2-minute feeler video. But for me, she's been a role model of the ways in which those of us that are academics have to get outside of thinking that our job is just to teach a certain curriculum and then students will do with it whatever they will, that we have a civic mission as well as a scholarly mission to convey information. And that is to really invite students to imagine themselves as change makers in the world, to invite students to think of the curriculum that they're learning as something that has long-term implications in terms of the direction that they will take their own lifelong learning in their life as a citizen. So those are just some of my parting thoughts for you here. I'm going to close this poll unless anybody's having trouble getting in. Looks like there's 31 people, but this is a check-in poll for attendance this morning. And a large portion of our final is showing up. Showing up, as some you might have heard before in life, is about 90% of your success in life. You don't show up, you're not, your success is extremely, your potential for success extremely limited. So good job showing up at 8 o'clock on this final day. I know many of you are exhausted from other finals, from the workload, and hopefully this will be a culmination which will be to a certain extent rewarding. All right, so let's take a look at the first. Does anybody need to say anything before we turn to the first declaration? I'm interested in how far the healthcare group got, because they were working on Zoom last night on my Zoom page for a couple hours. So let's give their document, their declaration, some attention. Is there anybody from your group who would like to read your document? Or I would, if there isn't anyone, I'm willing, but I'm
we organized it last night.
Great, perfect. Thank you so much. Are we in good position here to move forward?
Yeah, could you scroll down just a little bit so I can get the whole thing?
Should I make this actually a little smaller?
Yeah, maybe, just because I'm reading the entire preamble section, and then my next group member.
Then I read the grievances, and it goes, and we all decide which order we go in.
Yeah.
See if I
Professor, if you give me a second, I can just pull it up on my or never mind. I think you got it.
Let's see. How about that?
Perfect.
All right, who are we hearing from?
Anthony.
Go for it.
All right, and if you scroll up just a tad, we have a quote from Walter Cronkite that we feel accurately describes. All right, perfect. So for our final declaration, this is a quote from Walter Cronkite, who was cited as America's most trusted man once at a point of his career. He was a famous news anchor or broadcaster. So he said, America's healthcare system is neither healthy, caring, nor a system. And we felt this to be an accurate representation of our current position. So here's our preamble. All citizens of the United States of America should have the right to universal health care, as it is an act of morality for a government to act in the best interest of its citizens. The global pandemic of 2020 has highlighted the dysfunction and the immoral nature of America's healthcare system. Large governmental, insurance, and pharmaceutical entities have commoditized the lives of American citizens and have turned healthcare into a privilege, not a basic human right. All American citizens have the right to universal healthcare provided by their government. The government has a duty to provide adequate medical care for all citizens because it encompasses the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our capitalist nation has been overly focused on generating profits at the expense of the American people. By placing the power of healthcare into a business, we've effectively destroyed the opportunities for tens of millions of uninsured, law-abiding American citizens the right to medical attention. This quest for profit at the expense of the citizens has led to the dysfunction of our healthcare system. When tens of millions of American citizens can no longer afford to receive basic medical care, it's time for the citizens to be the voice of reason and demand change. No longer will the profit-seeking entities be the obstacle in the way of citizens and health. We shall demand universal health care in order to ensure the health and safety of all American citizens. In order for the government to ensure all citizens have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we must acknowledge healthcare as a humanitarian right. For too long, we have seen law die for not receiving basic medical treatment. Hundreds of thousands of Americans die each year from highly treatable illnesses, and in order for this to be rectified, the government has to provide universal health care. To proceed, let the immoralities of our healthcare system come to light.
Wow, so powerful.
I'll go for the next part. Grievances. Our healthcare system has morphed into a system for large pharmaceutical and insurance companies to commoditize the lives of American citizens. 2. America's failure to implement a system of universal healthcare causes hundreds of thousands of Americans to die each year from treatable conditions due to the catastrophic costs. 3. According to the Commonwealth Fund, among 11 nations of Organized for Economic Cooperative and Development, the United States spends nearly twice as much as a percentage of GDP on healthcare compared to other nations. 4. The rights of the United States of America, like other countries, has adopted a Declaration of Right to Health, but it's the only industrialized nation not to implement the universal healthcare system. With over 29 million left uninsured, we have a suffering population with an immoral decision of insurmountable financial debt to receive the care they need, or leaving them hopeless as they await to their death.
Awesome.
Okay, the conclusion. As seen through the reality of our broken healthcare system, the American people are suffering as our nation's government prioritizes profits over the lives of the American people. The immorality of our healthcare system, with power in the hands of profit-seeking companies, has led to the suffering of the American people. The exponential rising costs of healthcare have been the core reason for our nation's staggering uninsured population. With tens of millions of people left uninsured and even more left inadequately insured, Americans are being denied access to the medicine and care they need in order to live comfortably, but are unable to afford. As a nation founded on the ideals of the social contract theory, our leaders, thus far into America's existence, have failed to meet the health needs of their fellow Americans. In fact, our government and politicians have played a major role in forming our broken and corrupted healthcare system. Their prioritizing of profits and donations from large pharmaceutical companies over the lives and well-being of the American people is immoral and a reflection of our nation's failure in following the social contract theory. As a nation that prides itself on the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, our basic health and well-being is not promised and leaves us, the people, to call into question the validity of that promise. And thus, we leave our suffering population with the moral decision of insurmountable financial debt to receive the care they need, or leaving them helpless as they await their death.
Whoa, powerful last word. Really nice job. I can tell you guys put a lot of work into
One more
this.
part.
We still have the call to action.
Oh,
but
I'm
thank
sorry,
you
I
for
didn't
that.
realize there was more. Good. Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Here we go.
In order to obtain our proclaimed truths and ideals, that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are rights that belong to every single person, all American citizens must have access to fully covering healthcare. Therefore, we encourage each and everyone to look with empathy at their fellow citizens. We as Americans are only at our best when working together and taking care of each other. While these attributes seemingly have lost some of their importance in our highly sophisticated and globalized society, their role in setting the tone and commitment to social responsibilities and rights in our United States of America must not be underestimated. We must fully adopt a universal healthcare system that lives up to the promises of health being a human right. With the acceptance of health as a human right and providing medical treatment that our fellow Americans desperately need, regardless of their ability to pay or not, will allow our great nation to continue working towards the promises expressed in our country's founding documents. Our government needs to stop prioritizing the private sector of healthcare's interests and instead start valuing each citizen's life by upholding the promises made by our founding fathers and assume the responsibility of universal healthcare. Business will not triumph over patient care. The right to healthcare is unalienable and the only way to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness can exist if one is healthy. What we face is above all a moral issue. At stake are not just the details of policy, but fundamental principles of social justice and the character of our country. Ted Kennedy.
Wow, powerful quote to end there with Ted Kennedy's quote. Nice job getting your biography put together there. I know that probably for some groups was sort of a last minute thing because I sent you that example of the class, one of my other classes that had theirs completely footnoted. So good job putting that together. I would sign this. Although there are a few things a few issues I might raise. Anyone from the other groups see anything here that you might suggest for improving this?
It was interesting because no one, like you said, we didn't like no one really had we didn't really know what to expect going into it. So we talked about this last night. It was kind of cool to just see like what we came up with after all these like little things that like didn't seem connected but somewhat got connected. I don't know.
Yeah, you really did pull several things together. I think the strongest thing I think about this is that you're making a call that's a moral call, for a kind of a call to duty in the Kantian sense.
I also found it really interesting, like just the collaboration of everyone. Like I do have to say, like it's so I can't imagine like we didn't get into arguments. We did have a little bit of like heated battle of like talking to each other, but
That's
but
great.
I can't imagine like the founding fathers and like what they had to go through. And it's just like it was definitely an experience that you can't really take away from someone. It's pretty incredible.
I'm glad that you had a positive experience. I mean, in some ways, this your declaration, you guys went a little bit off the track that I had imagined, and so there was a sense in which you had to sort of prove yourself as a group in this endeavor because you picked a policy issue. But I like the way that you framed it as a philosophical issue. In your call to action, I'm with you in spirit. I think calling on, like when you say our government needs to stop prioritizing private sector healthcare. I might have made this even stronger and said something like, as citizens, we must call on our legislators not to, to take seriously this moral call to action and to sort of call them out on you know, I think it's implied here that the pharmaceutical industry has a lobby in Washington that is so powerful. It's actually amazing that Obama's healthcare plan, even the start of a healthcare program in this country, got through. And calling on citizens to be more accountable for calling on this. I think, you know, we're in the beginning of a long haul with regard to healthcare. So Obama sort of, he made the first move to reform the healthcare system in decades. And then, but I don't think that I think this indicates that your generation is not happy with how far we have a lot farther to go. Yeah, really nice job, you guys. I'm impressed. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment on the healthcare declaration? All right, let's give them, whoops, what's that? Let's give them a sense of whether we would sign this or not. I don't vote, but I already said I would sign this without reservation. Would you sign this declaration? A, yes, without reservation. B, yes, but with reservation. And that's why I asked if there's anybody that'd like to speak up and make any suggestions. So if you are going to vote B, please be ready to say what your reservations are with regard to this document. And C, no, I wouldn't sign this. Somewhat artificial to ask people in the context of a class where you're going to receive a grade and, you know, other people's grades depend on it, but somewhat also realistic in the sense that we as citizens, when other citizens put effort and energy into something, we give it our consideration. We listen to the reason, we listen for the argument, and this document definitely has an argument. So when you consider that argument, are you persuaded enough to go along with this declaration? Would you sign it? Would you put your name to it? Okay, vote now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, vote. And what do we got? Oh, that's awesome. Great to see that. This should feel really good to you guys who worked hard on that declaration. Thank you so much for your efforts. Let's move on. Is one of the other groups ready to go? I have, and I wasn't sure here. How about the responsibility and communication group? Are you guys ready?
Yeah, I think we're ready. Is there any way we could see the comments? Because I labeled, we basically labeled who's going to read each part.
Yeah, let's see. Jason, can you pull it up on your screen? Because right now I just got some thing that said something's wrong with my.
Sure, yeah, I could do that.
And at the end of class, I want to take a screenshot with everybody with their video on, if you're willing. So, so we can. Nobody needs to run off though to wash their hair. It's okay. Yeah, I wasn't 100% happy with using the Word document. I used the Google document in my other class. Probably use that next time. But let me know if you thought this really worked, the Word document. All right. Can you make it a little bit bigger?
Second.
Awesome.
Ready? Okay. Our preamble. A house divided against itself cannot stand. I do not expect the house to fall, but I do expect it will cease to be divided. Abraham Lincoln.
The success of American democracy depends on our unity. However, division in our country today is a widespread problem. Unity requires civic responsibility and respectful communication between people of differing opinions. As individuals, we must overcome our narrow focus on short-term gratification and cultivate the will to prioritize the greater good of the community. We also need courage to confront the fear of conflict, incivility, and discrimination.
Unity depends on shared commitment to the truth and the facts necessary for understanding our issues and problems. Citizens must be empowered to exercise free speech, debate, compromise, and the ability and desire to speak out. To achieve this, we must see a change in the priorities of our education, media, and politics. For education, it is necessary that every student must feel empowered to overcome division and work together as responsible citizens for the common good. For media, all citizens must be empowered to call for transparency and responsibility from their news media. For politics, our politicians must be made to work for citizens' interests rather than their own. By implementing these changes, we hope to create a more empathetic and compassionate country.
Grievances. Education. There's too much emphasis on mathematics and sciences to the exclusion of practical skills required for democratic decision making, including media literacy and critical thinking. The curriculum does not offer enough opportunities for interacting and working together to solve real world problems. The curriculum suffers from racial biases, omissions, and distortions in the service of an overly idealized narrative of American society.
Media. Capitalistic behavior has taken over the fundamental aspects of media in that they prioritize advertisement and screen ratings over delivering objective truths. Mainstream media outlets strive to promote cult-like information and propaganda in order to strengthen their support of their respective parties, when it has further divided and compromised the principles of our democracy.
Politics, self-interest, and politicians have led to a failure in our governing bodies to get things done. In the past 2 decades, the only major pieces of actual legislation that will seem significant in 50 years from now are the Affordable Care Act and the post-9/11 legislation.
Call to action. Education, media, and politics should empower citizens to come together and partake in the democratic process. However, the polarization in these fields has created an overemphasis on self-interest. In order to promote unity and more understanding with one another, rather than justify our self-agendas and ideologies, we propose
Education. Revise the educational curriculum so that it includes essential skills like media literacy and critical thinking. Re-examine the curriculum so that it teaches a more diversified and inclusive depiction of American history.
media by redirecting taxes from digital advertising and deploying them in a public media fund. Media outlets will include a weekly news segment to discuss policies without labeling them as liberal or conservative.
In order to combat self-interest, public meetings and hearings will be made more transparent and accessible to the public so that it encourages engagement between officials and their constituents, which will better reflect the interests of the entire community.
Conclusion. America is a country founded upon compromise, and compromise is formed through debate as it promotes, strengthens, and empowers a democracy where all individuals, groups, and parties have a voice and purpose. We therefore commit to these changes as an increase in widespread communication among individuals and the reduction of the long-standing individualistic mentality will result in a more empathetic and unified nation.
Wow, super powerful. Scroll back up. Anybody with feedback? I would just say the themes that came through here, so powerful. And also there's the same kind of call, which is a moral call to our citizens to take responsibility for overcoming the factionalization that we're experiencing at the moment. Really powerful to hear that from the youth. Anyone want to make a comment, suggestion, offer feedback to this group? And then I thought it was nice that the other group chimed in and talked a little bit about their process. So if there's anybody in your group that would like to speak up about the process and how that went for you. I think you made some pretty big strides here in pulling the threads together so that it really reads, like the argument you wanted it to be. I could see progress from what I looked at on Tuesday for sure.
Yeah, I think definitely I'm on the same page with Emerson that this project has definitely made me get a greater appreciation for the Declaration of Independence. It took a tremendous amount of work just bringing people together, but it was unexpectedly really rewarding. I was gifted with like really good members in my group, and a lot of them were really eager to help out. For this, what I really try to emphasize is that what you try to emphasize is that the process is a lot more important, and our final product might not be like the most polished thing in the world, but
I
I'm
think
really
it's
proud
pretty
of.
good. It's pretty good,
Yeah.
Jason. Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, but I'm really proud of how far we came just in the span of the past couple of weeks. So
Yeah, 2 weeks you pulled this
Yeah.
together. Really nice job. Did it satisfy you, Barry? I know you were the original inspiration for this call for responsibility. Did this meet your hopes?
Yes, it's more than it surpassed it, and
Oh, that's good.
I'm very grateful to have all my group mates that that pull this thing together, and I think this is a very rewarding experience in that we've all tried our best to come up with different ideas, and like we had like 20 pages or like
You guys
17
had 20
pages of
pages of
really
ideas.
long of ideas, and we just copied and paste, and then we weren't willing to delete like people's ideas, so we just copied and then we just paste it underneath so that we can use it later on. And in reality, we actually used some of the ideas that we initially erased, so that's a really good thing, I would say.
Yeah, that's the coming back, cutting out, put it back, cut it. That's really the democratic process at work. So I'm really grateful to hear that. Thank you. You got a big smile on your face, Valentino. Was this unexpected?
Yeah, it was fun doing this. In the beginning, it was kind of a little bit messy.
And
With, like,
frustrating.
19 pages. Especially like during the beginning of last night as we were working on it, I was like, we were like, where is everything? It seemed like out of place because everything was so similar but in different sections. But then towards like the end of the night, as we were like grinding through it, everything started looking fine cut and beautiful. All coming together. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that process. Yeah, I knew that the groups were probably working, but nobody really reported into me, this is what we're doing. So I didn't really know what was happening behind the scenes. And it's so gratifying for me as a teacher to know how much effort and energy you guys put into getting together and to working together to try to make this happen. Anyone else from your group? Anyone else from the class as a whole responding to this declaration?
Could I say something?
Yeah, Hallie, go for it.
I just wanted to say it's interesting to see the standpoint everybody's coming from, like with morals and everything, because that's something I like didn't realize, and so it's interesting to see it all stemming from that.
Yeah, those values, I mean, the principles, the values that philosophers are trying to impress upon us, right? Kant, the social contract, the duties and the responsibilities of the social contract, the declaration of the right to representation by a government, a government that represents you. All of those values are what makes it possible to actually put a memo like this together. Thank you for that. I also see a lot of overlap in these two. We'll see how much in the third. Jason, can you end your sharing? Thank you. Thank you. Good job. So nice to see all of you. All right. So the third group, do you guys have a document that's other than the document that's in the Word, or should I bring that up?
That's in the copied it in. We were using the Google Docs, and we just put it into the Word.
Oh, you just put it in, so I can go there.
Yeah.
Let's see. See, I don't know why it's saying, sorry, we're having a problem. Let's see. Let's go here. Is mine the most updated?
We are not sharing your screen.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Are we looking, is this the most updated version?
Yeah. The beginning of the document. Yeah.
Do you guys have volunteers to read?
We do indeed.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
All right. I'll start.
Thank
you.
you.
All right. A popular government without popular information or means for acquiring it is but a prologue to a farce or a tragedy. Throughout the past 50 years, America's commitment to fostering conditions under which a vibrant democracy can thrive has wavered. Our current path has been dictated by an ideology which incentivizes people to resolve their disputes as self-interested agents or consumers in the marketplace, and which holds that this is the best means for preserving our liberty. As Lincoln once said, we all declare for liberty, but in using the same word, we do not all mean the same thing. This excessively individualistic and competitive culture has distorted our notion of the word by emphasizing its negative form. Freedom from interference, freedom for needing to wear a mask, freedom from civic duty, freedom from the other. Constrained by such a narrow definition of freedom, we have given less attention to its positive form. Freedom to participate, freedom to develop full and meaningful lives, freedom to create a country which serves the interests of the population as a whole.
Wow.
These are more than just guardians of our individual rights and property. The quality of our social institutions will determine the extent to which we all have access to appropriate conditions which enable us to flourish. A democratic society which aspires to be governed by its citizens must give them the opportunity to participate politically and shape these institutions according to their needs. This should be the meaning of freedom in a democracy. The key to getting there is an education which empowers people with the knowledge and critical thinking skills necessary to become active citizens. Americans must have access to an education which prepares them for civic life, to accurate and nonpartisan information, and to the opportunities for civic engagement necessary to effectively participate in our democracy. The inadequacies of our educational system, news media, and opportunities for community collaboration include.
Wow, such a beautiful preamble.
Grievances. Education. For the past 50 years, our schools and communities have been driven by market demands, promoting a utilitarian education geared towards technical skills and insertion into a competitive market, but which does not educate us for democracy. Our schools' focus on standardized testing fosters in students an individualistic and competitive spirit, which is inconducive to the development of a well-prepared citizenry. The inadequate understanding of the country's historical and contemporary place, both in terms of its accomplishments and its sins, hinders us from moving forward as a nation. Knowledge is power. By failing to educate marginalized groups of their rights as citizens, we are depriving them of their means to improve their circumstances. Our teachers and schools lack the government support and resources necessary in order to effectively prepare students for civic life. Media.
Wow.
Our public square has been colonized by a profit-driven media which thrives on fast and uncritical news. Hyper-partisanship in the media has led to news outlets that fundamentally obscure citizens' ability to make sound decisions as a collective democratic whole. Confidence in the accuracy and objectivity of all channels of the news media has declined to the point that Americans have no mutually agreed on upon source for basic facts. Community. Our government is persistently not responsive to the needs of the population, which has grown alienated from politics and from democracy itself, which has become to many a hollow term. The rise of civic deserts, places where there are few opportunities to meet, discuss, and address problems, has contributed to a steep decline in civic engagement. The decline in political engagement of young Americans in recent years. This is a result of a sense of powerlessness in face of the overwhelming complexity and seemingly arbitrariness of our political system.
Powerful.
Conclusion. From these grievances, a pattern emerges. An overly individualistic and market-oriented culture has deprived people of the necessary means to truly understand themselves as citizens and to act collectively in order to shape society towards their needs and hopes. A lack of education concerning American history and civics, the fragmentation of the news media, and the decline in the opportunity for civic dialogue have led to a voting public that is insufficiently educated or informed about critical public issues or alternatives for addressing such issues or the views of other citizens on these issues, with the intent of providing a framework for promoting lifelong education and building on the conviction that an educated, well-informed, and integrated citizenry is important for a well-functioning democracy. These are our recommendations.
Call to action. Educational reform. Require 1 year of civics education in both primary school and high school. Require each student to pass the USCIS citizenship test in order to graduate from high school. Require each student to participate in at least 40 hours per year of experiential learning through a community organization in order to graduate from high school. Investment in the capacity of teachers and existing civic leaders to inspire and educate people to participate politically. Supporting these groups will allow us to take advantage
Of their
existing commitments and of the existing infrastructure in order to have a broad impact on K through 12 adult learning and community programs. This support should be built around the Educating for American Democracy Project's Roadmap for Excellence, which outlines priorities, instructional strategies, and best practices for integrating civics and history into educational programs. It also stresses the urgency of providing a more accurate account of this country's history, which covers both its accomplishments and its setbacks realistically. In parallel to this, and building on our Common Purposes recommendation 6.5, we propose the creation of a state and federal program which reward and showcase the most successful civic education initiatives, including the work of students, teachers with the intent of motivating participation and creating awareness. Media reform, the creation of a government corporation chartered by Congress to provide a public news service that would be committed to providing objective, nonpartisan, and in-depth information and analysis of national and international issues, accessible through all media, subsidized by the federal government, governed by an independent board approved by Congress, and containing equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans. Reimpose the fairness doctrine, which required broadcasters to cover controversial issues of public importance, and in doing so, provide contrasting views on those issues. Community building, developing a nationwide community-oriented program for political engagement and the dissemination of bipartisan political information. Funding could be attained in the blueprint laid out by Section 4.1 in our Common Purpose, establishing a national trust for civic infrastructure and education. The trust could be funded by philanthropic seed funding or even appropriations from Congress. Public spaces such as libraries, school auditoriums, or town halls could be designated as the meeting places for these communities, and where necessary, spaces could be designated for the sole purpose of this program. Develop a nationwide network of neighborhood communities on the blueprint provided by the City of Los Angeles Neighborhoods Council to provide an opportunity for civic engagement. We therefore call upon our fellow citizens to commit this nation to providing access to education, information, and community engagement that will empower all citizens to knowledgeably participate in our democracy and shape our institutions towards providing for the common good.
Wow. That's amazing. Really impressive, you guys. I realized that I didn't have us vote on signing the other one. So we'll vote on signing both of these at the end. Let's go ahead though with the discussion of this one. The preamble is beautiful. I I think this emphasis on negative versus positive freedom really probably wouldn't have been possible without taking the modern philosophy class. I don't know, maybe some of you had a sense of that already coming in. I know a few of you did, but it's very well executed here in the introduction. And it also really speaks to the healthcare group. You guys have Education for a Healthy Democracy. And I think that could be something that unites all three of these documents, is the call for the affirmation of our positive freedoms, of what enables us to live up to our potential, as opposed to just what mitigates interference with our choice making. That hasn't been the strongest of impulses in the American tradition, but perhaps your generation will bring that forward. Any comments, concerns, questions from other people in the class about this declaration? Because I can see how the overlap with the responsibility group might have been I might have forced that separation in the groups in terms of creating the groups in the beginning, because you guys, I think you have education, media, and community. The other group has media, education, and politics, right? So a nice overlap there. If we had the time, we would go to the next stage of seeing how we could bring these three documents together in order to create something that we would all be able to sign on to. I could definitely sign on to this. I don't know if I could pass the USCIS citizenship test, but I'd be willing to study up in order to do that. That's the test that immigrants have to pass. And I had a friend that just passed it this last week, and she said it was like a very difficult test. I'm not sure if that just has to do with not really having the proper education for it. Really nice job here, you guys. Anybody from your group want to talk about the process? I know I threw you for a little bit of a spin on Tuesday morning. What happened between then and now?
We met and kind of like built on everybody's idea. Peter had made a draft which really got like an objective kind of a proposal on the table, and then from that we put in more of like maybe some more philosophy into it.
Yeah, some more infrastructure.
Yeah, and then it was an interesting process, if anybody wants to speak.
Lana, you did a lot of work organizing the process. How was this for you?
I actually went really well. Everyone was very on board to work. Like, I feel like Noah kind of ended up being our Thomas Jefferson a little bit, but there are, I can see writing from everyone's work in there.
I can see it too. Yeah, I can definitely see it.
Yeah, and everyone, honestly, I mean, I did a lot of organizing, but everyone made it easy. Everyone was very down to get together and work.
Good to hear from you today, Hallie and Nia. Did you want to add anything?
I think I agree with both of them. I think when we met, I think after the what's it called? Class hours, or the
office hours? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Office hours. We really kind of looked at what, Peter gave us, and then we kind of went from there, like, okay, this is good. But, due to his background, it was very like professional.
Yeah,
and then
you guys had a professional constitutional lawyer in your
yeah, I know, it was awesome. And then so we kind of took it and made it a little more, like emotional, I guess, more like driven, stuff like that.
Spirited.
Yes.
Philosophical.
Mm-hmm. Which we all helped with, and that was really, really good.
Peter, any thoughts?
It really was interesting to see starting Tuesday, people on the team taking ownership. And saying, well, great, but there are other ideas, whether they're philosophical or emotional or specific grievances or specific solutions, and working to get those into the document, and taking responsibility for doing it. There are quite a few Zoom sessions and drafting sessions. So that was an interesting process to watch.
Thank you for your observations. Anybody else?
I just wanted to chip in and give thanks to Lana for conducting everything like very well, especially with the Zoom meetings and everything. I just wanted to like give thanks to her for that.
So nice to hear your gratitude. Thanks. Yeah, I could really see you. This group had a powerful group of people working together. Any 5 of you, 6 of you could have been the leader of the group. And sometimes when you have a lot of people that have leadership potential, it can be sort of alpha to alpha, difficult to get something done. But I'm really pleased with the ways that you work together to produce such an amazing document. Thank you so much for your work.
I actually have something I noticed, because what you just said kind of made me think. I noticed that we actually had a hard time kind of narrowing it down because we had so many ideas. We were like, no, that could be an umbrella. But then we were like, well, we don't have time. But let's write that down anyways. You know, it got kind of difficult to narrow it down a bit. But we luckily did. It was just lots.
I mean, it's exciting that you guys have so many great ideas. And then also, the challenge of working together requires some discipline and some focus, which you, in the end, did achieve. So you should feel really good about your work.
Yeah, I actually want to say I was like playing it by ear, trying to figure out how to like run the Zoom meetings when it sort of became clear that I was the person doing that.
The Zoom meetings.
And I was like so afraid of leading everyone astray by accident. But a couple times, like I think Nia like would chime in and be like, "This is great, but I don't know if we have time for this." And I'd be like, "Right, thank you. We don't have time for this." And then we'd focus. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to be the leader, right, Jason? Right, Emerson, I know you actually worked in a kind of triad with a couple of other people, but it's hard to be the leader because you don't want to step on toes.
And it's also like the other thing too is the decision making. You're kind of sitting there and you're just like for me, and for my instance, and I know Arya and Anthony definitely know this, where I was just kind of sitting there. It was just like I had to make a choice, and it was very hard to decide on which one because you knew you would upset someone compared to someone liking the other. So yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to step on anybody's toes, but that's what you guys are all writing about, right? This importance of taking responsibility of coming together for common purpose, and the actual work of coming together for a common purpose does require us to put in check to some extent our ego, our self-interest in our view of what's right there. I mean, that, imagine how difficult it was, to be okay for Thomas Jefferson to be okay with them Xing his condemnation of slavery from the document, which might have actually brought his own behavior into alignment with his own ideals, had there been an earlier statement in our founding documents against slavery. That was probably pretty momentous. Like that's the kind of thing that might make you walk away from the entire process. Okay, let's go to a vote. Let's do a vote on the responsibility. The second one we heard. So this one is, the group was responsibility and communication. Did you guys have a specific title for your declaration? So this is Jason, Barry, the second one that we heard. All right, take a vote. Yes, I would sign without reservation. B, yes, but with some reservation. B, please be ready to state your reservations. No, I would not sign this. 27 people have signed. Just hit the clicker again, just in case your click didn't go through. Make sure you're getting that affirmation coming back that you voted. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Vote. We have 32 people in the class, only 28 voting. We might have lost a few people who were up all night and fell asleep on us. Vote now. All right, and this group gets a unanimous affirmation. Congratulations to the responsibility and communication group. And now we'll do the last group, which was the, what was it? Was it education and media? I think it was education and media, but you guys had, I think you had for a healthy democracy. Is that right? Declaration for a healthy democracy.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I'm all for a declaration for a healthy democracy. I would sign without reservation. All right, everybody get your vote in now. And then I have 2 other questions for you. We'll have any final comments. It was interesting. We talked some about whether we would be able to achieve consensus. You know, like I said before, there's a little bit of artificiality to this process because of being a classroom situation. But once you see all the work that goes into something, a kind of appreciation washes over you. And unless there is a principled objection, it's not as hard to go along and to build consensus as you might have thought. Once you're working together and you have a sense of fraternity or solidarity, it becomes easier to reach a consensus. Okay, vote now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's 33 people, but only 30 votes. Last chance. All right, nice to see universal affirmation for these declarations. Congratulations to all 3 groups. You guys did an amazing job. I'm really, really proud of you, really happy with our progress here. All right, so this is, in this final process, what did you learn about the work of putting ideas or philosophy into an action plan? A, great learning experience. Wish more finals were like this. B, at least one valuable lesson. C, I'm neutral. D, I did not learn much. E, I would rather have worked on my own final essay or exam. Now, remember, I think we had 2 people that were in this category. We'll see if we swayed anyone to move up the you know, I wouldn't have given you this question last week because all week I had anxiety. I'm sure you did too. All week I had stress about this. Is this going to come together? Is this going to work? So today, at the end of it, you're in a better position to evaluate it on the other side of success than stress. Sometimes, you know, I go back to that old adage, no pain, no gain. It's lonely studying for finals, and this brought you together in a way that perhaps you were not brought together in your other classes. Did you value that or not? How would you rate this learning experience at the end of the class, having this collaboration instead of 2 weeks of review and studying for a comprehensive exam or a comprehensive essay? Did you feel like this sort of civics lesson at the end of the class was a good learning experience for you? Okay, vote now. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, vote. All right, and we got, all right, so we got 65% given an A. It was an awesome experience. 8 say at least one valuable lesson. 3 neutral. Fortunately, we moved some of the folks that were in this category up in that it wasn't as bad as you had thought it might be. Thank you for that feedback. I will also give you a final extra credit opportunity to give me some more feedback for those of you that are riding the borderline. And what grade would you give your group for this collaboration? What grade would you give your group? Not you as an individual, but your group. Would you give your group an A, a B, or a C? I won't ask you what grade you would give me for this class. But if you want to give me a grade, one way to do it in the real world is go to Rate My Professor and let other students know if you thought this was valuable or not valuable, problematic. But what grade would you give your group for this collaboration? An A, a B, or a C? Vote now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, vote. All right, so 90% would give their group an A. 3 people, these are the hard graders, 10% would give their group a B. Good to see that nobody was so disappointed in their group that they would give them a C, since I consider both an A and a B a passing grade, but this is a pretty good sign. Are there any other questions, poll questions you want me to put up here that you want to know from our class right now? Anything you're wondering about before we sign off today? I'm closing out the clicker. That was the last clicker vote. The last clicker pointage. I'll be putting in your points for the clicker and for your participation in the discussions by the end of the day today. Then I'll send out an email to you that has a final grade check in case anything's missing or you see any errors before I put in the final grades. Yeah, Jackson? Okay, anybody that's willing, turn on your video so I can get a screen print of everyone in the class, and I'll post that for you. For anybody that's willing, turn on your video. Ah, good to see all of you. Oh my God, that is so heartwarming. All right, let me see. There's page 2 though. All right, here we go. It's page 2. I love you guys. I'm gonna miss this class so much. Thank you so much. I will post both of those. I wish you the best of luck in your educational journey, your ongoing educational journey. If you are a glutton for punishment and you want to take more classes with me, I teach 2 classes much easier than this one. One is Philosophy 1, the other is Philosophy 7. Both of those classes are closed for the winter and the spring term, but if you pass this class, I will give you an add code if you wish to get in to either of my other classes. I have recommendations for other professors. If you haven't taken Poli-Sci 1, you should take Richard Tvilderen or Christine Schultz, fantastic professors. If you're interested in public policy, SMC has a public policy certificate where you can earn a certificate for doing an internship in a placement for 1 semester in Santa Monica city government or with an organization working in the area of urban arts, environment, and something else. So if you're interested in that, Public Policy Institute, you can look that up on the SMC page. If you're interested in psychology, I recommend evolutionary psychology, Alex Schwartz, and social psychology, Aaron Q. and Steph Anderson. There's a lot of great psychology professors. Economics, Amber Urrutia, Urrutia, U-R-R-T-I-A. She's a fantastic microeconomics professor. If you want to take more philosophy, I recommend both of our other full-time philosophers, Ali Mohsen and Paul Klumpy, fantastic professors. In sociology, if you're interested in women's studies and gender studies, Yamaset Westerbrand is our full-time women's studies or gender studies professor. Also, Rebecca Romo really does a great job on, she teaches a sociology of racial and economic injustice. And James Thing The newest addition to our sociology faculty, fantastic. There's still a lot of education to get at SMC, so I wish you the best of luck in your continuing educational journey. I have nothing else for you. Any last words from anyone else?
If we want an ad code, should we email you?
Email me.
Isn't it? Don't
The
they
ad
open
codes
it?
haven't been put out yet, but
Yeah.
as soon as they come out, I will give anyone who's passed a class with me an ad code to take another class because you've proved yourself. So I would want you in my classroom.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Professor.
All right, no
Have a
problem. Good to have you
day.
again, Emerson. This was your second, right?
Yeah, this is my second, and
That only leaves critical thinking, I think.
Yeah, it was critical thinking. That's like the last one.
Yeah.
But I highly recommend. Also, I took poli sci 1 with Dr. Talvadur.
Tavilder and Jeswin, yeah. Tavilder.
He's awesome. Highly recommend. I really like the fact that he uses films as a way to interpret political change, and I think that's really good for a lot of us, especially during a pandemic, because you can just be at home and you don't have to get exposed in any way. And then if you take Clumpy, highly recommend him for I just took his Philo 9 class, which is symbolic logic, which is
Oh man, that's a hard one, right? How'd you do,
Yeah.
Emerson?
I don't know. It was definitely a little hard. I know Armin knows that definitely.
Yeah, no, he's geared that deductive logic class in order to make sure that Berkeley will accept it as in transfer. So he is meeting the Berkeley standard with regard to that class. That is not an easy
Yeah,
class. So
and he's one of the only professors in the California community colleges, because normally that class only covers like the first half of it, but
Yeah.
he goes full in depth and go all the way over. And
Yeah.
then definitely recommend his ethics class. I think you would definitely, I'm excited for his moral conflicts class. That's really exciting to me. But
Yeah, he's a fantastic professor. Thanks for speaking up, Emerson. Anyone else? Nia.
Wanted to say thank you for the challenging and I wasn't expecting what I was going to read and take in this semester. So I appreciate the alternative and challenging, and kind of forced me to be a little bit more introspective with how I'm perceiving the world around. So thank you.
Thank you, Nia. Thank you for
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for everything. Good class.
Hallie, you came such a long way. I remember when I was helping you with that first paper, I was like, I don't know if she's going to make it, but whoa, you totally killed it. Good job.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I
good
want
class.
to second that. Thank you for class. It was really very perspective shifting. And I'm really glad with what's going on in the world that I was getting educated on these things. And I also just want to say I'm really proud of my group reading back our declaration. We did really good, and I'm very proud of them.
Very well. I'm very proud of all three of the groups. Really satisfying final experience. All right, let's wave goodbye. Good luck, everyone.
So
Take good
Thank you
care.
so much, Professor.
Thank you. Email
Thank
me
you.
anything you want to talk about that you didn't get to say at the end of class. All right, take care. I'm shutting us down.
Thank you so much. Have a fantastic break.
You too.